Well, this is one of many cases of fraud and corruption plaguing Sasa. But let's get a reaction to this. We speak to the Deputy Social Development Minister, Mr. Ganife Hendricks, who joins us. We're also joined by the Coordinator for Pay the Grants, Alfred Moyo, and criminal law expert Ian Ellis also joins us this evening as we discuss this pertinent issue. And DM, I think naturally we'd want to start with you. And of course, we had approached Paseka Letsatsi as well, but due to protocol, he unable to speak to us and informing us just moments ago. But your understanding of certainly how the department has been briefed on what was found in Dutywa at the local office. I mean, concerning there, that officials essentially had, a compliance check-in at this local office in Dutywa in the Eastern Cape for Sasa and found birth certificates, bank cards, affidavits, and so much more. I mean, talk to me about, just what we know about what's gone on at that particular office, DM.
Look, as you know, there is disciplinary procedures that have been launched, and the police is also involved. One wouldn't want to go into the details, except to say that the Minister Tolasi and myself, we are the sitting minister and deputy minister. And the issues around fraud in Sasa is on our desk. We are now taking charge. We are taking a very firm position. We've got a cooperation of the police. And what happened in the Eastern Cape is as a result of the minister's strong effort to curb corruption and fraud that exists. So we are very happy that it is paying off because first of all, the platform that Sasa has been built on was a knee-jerk reaction when COVID hit us. To give 20 million people a grant, something had to be developed in a month's time. It looks as if the platform that is operating needs dramatic improvement, and that is also underway. The minister has put in place a lot of checks and balances, and that's why we managed to identify what is happening, what has happened in the Eastern Cape, and the law must run its course. We've got a zero tolerance approach, and those people who are in the meantime getting grants which they are not entitled to, we will get our full pound of flesh. They'll have to pay back the money. They'll have to go to jail if necessary. And we are taking a very firm stand with regard to the corruption. The challenge that we as a Department of Social Development have is that Sasa is an independent agency. It just reports to the minister, so we cannot be too hands-on in the agency. Sasa has its own staff. It has its own board of directors. It's only the minister that has responsibility. So the buck does stop with her. So we have put in place very strong measures to detect fault. And for example, we stopped the grants of nearly 2 million people who tried to fraudulently obtain grants in the last few months. So our measures to prevent fraud is working, and we are thrilled that we are now starting to catch the criminals.
Okay. The Deputy Minister saying measures in place to prevent fraud are working. Alfred, I want to bring you in here, Mr. Moyo, because you are with civil society, pay the grants. You know, we're talking about the story coming out of the Dutywa local office where the officials there were found with unaccounted documents, you know, affidavits, bank statements, municipal letters. I mean, the list goes on. Very concerning that this sort of documentation would be found. And so there was a suspension of these officials that were found with this document, with these documents. But just 2 days ago, here on Newzroom Afrika, Mr. Moyo, we then covered the story, our very own Linda Mnisi, covering the story of a man in Soweto found in possession of 139 Sasa cards. So where the Deputy Minister says we are doing the best that we can and our efforts to prevent fraud within Sasa are working, I mean, are you convinced of that?
Good evening. I'm not really convinced. As the payday grants, we've been raising some of those issues. And since the inception of this type of grants, there's never been a smooth year where the beneficiaries are getting their money in order and in time and sufficiently so. So each and every year since 2020, this grant has been introduced, there's always an issue of fraudulent activities. And the most people that are vulnerable and eligible to get and benefit from this grant are the ones that are being victimized. And at the end of the day, Sasa will come back and say they are dealing with checks and balances, whereas those checks and balances are also impacting on the vulnerable and poor communities, while the people who are perpetuating or committing those crimes are internal members within the Sasa itself, and some to an extent, which this need also a thorough investigation, that there is some kind of collusion that we are suspecting within Sasa and the Home Affairs. Because how can you obtain documents and birth certificates? Because that's a Home Affairs duty that is issuing those documents. So if people can easily access Sasa cards, documents, birth certificates, and all of that, who's responsible, which institution? Because the vulnerable grant recipients are not in possession of the machine that can make or produce Sasa cards or identification cards. So those are the issues that we've been raising as payday grants, that there is an internal conspiracy within the members, inside those institutions. So I think it's a first step, but I think it's just a sample of many of those branches that need some kind of visit and investigations.
Sure. Ian, speak to us. I mean, you're the criminal law expert here, and perhaps you can talk to us about just the sort of sophistication that we see taking place where Sasa fraud is concerned. Alfred talks about whether or not there's some links between officials also within Home Affairs. But I immediately think about last year, towards the end of the year, big story of 2 first-year students that were able to uncover massive fraud on the online system. So let's talk about the sophistication that we see where Sasa fraud is concerned.
Thank you, Naledi, and good evening to the viewers as well as my fellow panelists. The fact that actually remains and that comes out of it is I'm not disagreeing with what Alfred actually said, where there seems to be certain links. If one takes a look at it, the whole problem holistically with the issue of corruption, especially where there could be government-related corruption and government division-related corruption, there are often tie-ins of the different departments, and that's how certain of the documents are coming into being. Yes, there's also elements of online fraud and other, if one could say, contact and corruption-based fraud with just simple individuals within the hierarchy of the office. But with regards to the corruption and the sophistication, it varies according to the depth and the extent of what the individual players are dealing with. Is that where a person's got access to that number of cards? That in its own right creates a fear of what else. They are going to require certain machinery. This isn't stuff that's been printed out on your casual printer. They having access to certain if not documents, full-on documents, the stationery to prepare these documents. So one must, in actual fact, consider the fact that the people behind it, even if we rule out a link between the two departments, there is a sophisticated cartel that is behind this type of fraud and corruption, and it's a profitable one.
Sure. There's a lot to look at here, but we want to take calls as well, right? As we look at if you're satisfied with how government is dealing with the instances that we see of fraud within Sasa, taking your calls on 010-594-6010 and send us a WhatsApp as well, 0721105584. And that can be a text message or even a video or a voice note. We'd love to hear your voice and perhaps even see your face. Ali is in Ekurhuleni. Ali, good evening.
Good evening, Naledi.
Thank you so much for calling, sir. Talk to us.
A quick one.
Sure.
You will recall it's in the public domain that the two previous ministers of this department had to explain their way about service providers, which was surrounded with a lot of shenanigans regarding services provided by outside services providers. Then that means it's not only your ordinary officials at the bottom that are involved in corruption. Corruption in this department runs much deeper than what meets the eyes. It looks like this is a department where they've got a lot of low-hanging fruits for corruption. I do not see this department getting rid of all the wrongdoing in the short space of time. The environment there looks very conducive for all wrongdoing. That's my take.
That's an interesting one. Ali in Ekurhuleni saying two previous ministers have dealt with massive challenges within the space of Sasa, and so perhaps those that are in power drinking from already what is a poison chalice. But we're going to get responses, of course, from the Deputy Minister of Social Development as well as our other panelists on the other side of this. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we continue the discussion on really what should be done and if there is sufficient progress being seen in dealing with corruption within Sasa. And we are still in conversation with our panel that is made up of the Deputy Minister of Social Development, Mr. Hanif Hendricks, Ian Alice, who is a criminal law expert, as well as Alfred Moyo of Pay the Grant. So taking your WhatsApps on 072-110-5584. And your calls on 010-594-6010. DM, let's come back to you. The caller a little bit earlier saying the reality is that Sasa has been plagued by challenges for a very long time. Previous ministers having had to deal with this. I remember in the previous administration, there were delays at some point in paying out of Sasa. We saw that numerous times. We had another minister at some point who was faced with a controversial contract that was tasked with disseminating some of our grants. Talk to me about the challenges really of getting Sasa up to really where it needs to be. As you walk into this department and you oversee where Sasa's challenges are, what is it that you feel we need to get right immediately? Alfred even mentioning links possibly between officials at Sasa and Home Affairs.
Let me say that the minister is top of her game, and she has put in very strong measures to understand what is happening and to fix what is happening. We heard about these attempted fraudulent cases, so yes, we understand now from the media that there are so-called Sasa cards. There's no thing such as a Sasa card. That's most probably a post-bank card. Sasa doesn't issue any cards. Once you qualify, we pay the money into a bank of your choice. Some people have chosen to use Postbank. They may have chosen to use Capitec. So when you see 100 Capitec cards, it's not Sasa cards. When you see 100 Postbank cards, it's not Sasa cards. It's the cards issued by the bank that the beneficiary has chosen for the money to be transferred to. As far as those cases in the Eastern Cape is concerned, I don't think that they have been successful because no money has been paid into those accounts. So those are attempts at committing fraud. And our systems, like I've indicated earlier on, is now state of the art. We are introducing biometrics. I told the chairman of the portfolio committee, we're also looking at artificial intelligence. And so it will be very difficult for people to fraudulently get grants. Yes, there may be problems with Home Affairs, but we've also put in checks and balances. Like I told you earlier on, we caught out nearly 2 million people that wanted grants, and we put them on hold, and we're not paying them at all. And we require them now to physically come to our office, and most of them didn't come, so one can assume that they were trying to defraud the state. And the minister, like I said, also said is a zero tolerance. And it seems that the measures that she's put in place has been working. People are being caught out now. They will have the day in court. There will be disciplinary action. And we have an acting CEO that we have appointed, and he's also top of his game. So these things will happen in the transition phase. Like I say, we are sitting ministers, sitting deputy ministers. We feel that we are going to solve this problem. We're also looking at the alternative system, because remember that the establishment of the current payment system was a knee-jerk reaction to COVID. We had to get something up and running in 1 month's time. The most, even Fort Knox is being hacked nowadays.
Yeah.
Banks are being hacked. Cybersecurity is a big challenge. It's a matter of national security at the moment.
Okay.
Because we find that these hackers are outsmarting whatever measures we put in place, but they're not going to succeed in the end.
Okay. I think that I want to just give this quickly to our other panelists to think about while I take calls. Alfred, will you just ponder a little bit on what the Deputy Minister has said? And he talks about biometrics certainly being introduced in the Sasa system. I immediately think about this 20th of March deadline for the migration of new cards. Just, how confident you are in, number one, the execution of that migration, and then I think for you, Ian, to talk to us about how well we trust even the biometric system that is going to be implemented, and if we see any overall gaps there that criminals might be capitalizing on. But quickly, let's take calls. Sanele is in Ladysmith. Sanele, good evening.
This one, Siyaphila what?
Siyaphila Putam, Kulmanat.
Thank you so much. May I greet the panelists then?
Sure, go ahead.
Just one straight shot there. Similarly, I'm just having a question with the Deputy Minister. Similarly, I'm struggling to understand the Deputy if he's saying that they are winning this after the action. So how can they say there is something that he can just on air can claim that they are doing, or they are I'm not quite clear about what is the minister trying to do, because already about 1 something million is gone, and this is just a picture. There are a lot of millions that are gone missing through Sasa. So now every time our MEC, our leaders, departmental leaders, they are just kicking the stone after it had rained. Then, and lastly, to the constitutionally expert there, to the law expert Ian, Mr. Ian, on understanding these issues or this corruption or this syndicate, constitutionally, if our ministers or our HODs, directors are really, have an interest in fighting this internal corruption constitutionally, how can they be assisted? But depending if they are so interested. Thank you so much, Mr. Swan.
Okay, Siyabonga Bhutam, thank you so much. Sanele in Ladysmith there. And of course, Sanele really asking for recommendations. What is it that we do to assist our officials to get to the bottom of it? And Nkosnati is in Davidton. Nkosnati, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you for calling. Talk to us.
Yes, ma'am. Same problem happened to my child. We applied for ID for my child 2 years back in spring, 3rd of Affairs. And then after that, as he was not working, he applied for money for grant. Unfortunately, they told him that someone is getting money for him. So we wait, and then he went to Sasa again, tried to explain to them, tell them that there's someone who's getting money there. They say, no, we'll sort it out your issue. We'll sort it out your issue. Until now, nothing has sorted out.
And this is a child desperate to receive the child's grant, but being told that that money already is being paid out. But the question is, to who? Nkosnati, thank you so much for that. And, one of the big questions is, where do people go when they find themselves in that position? But Alfred, let's come back to you now, Mr. Moyo. The question around biometrics, are you confident in the security of that? And then there's this new transition of migrating to these new cards, the deadline by the 20th of March. There's the question around how many of them actually have been given out. What are your concerns around how Sasa is trying to tighten up security?
Yeah, thank you very much. Firstly, maybe let me deal with the contradiction that the Deputy Minister is raising in saying Sasa doesn't issue the card. Yes, we know that Sasa doesn't issue the card, but Sasa is pushing the beneficiaries to go and apply and make sure that they get those cards. Like, for instance, it was Sasa that was pushing people to go and open.
Oh, Alfred, are you still there? Oh, gosh, okay, that line giving us some trouble. We're going to get back to him. Let's hope that that line will clear up. Bit of connectivity issues there. But Ian, I think you can take over. I mean, we were talking about tightening of security, biometrics, loops that you might foresee. And then there was the question that was asked by Sanele, who says, what are the recommendations that you put on the table here for officials?
Well, let me put it to you this way. And it's something that I'd like to also address what the Deputy Minister also went ahead. And unfortunately, it becomes a little bit of a play on words in regards, and this is where it's going to come into effect with these new cards as well. You can say what you want with, no, it's not Sasa, it's this bank and it's that bank and it's that bank, it'll be post-bank cards. But at the end of the day, it's Sasa's run program. And ultimately, they're responsible for it, and the buck stops there. So realistically, coming up with biometrics and all these security measures, to me, it sounds a lot like they're trying to go ahead and save water by using a leaky bucket. It's still the same problem. It's the same, and it's the same history, it's the same hierarchy that's been going on for years. So what do they need to go ahead and ask? And the first thing is that one needs to do is reevaluate the whole of the process and the whole of the department of the assessment of those processes. And unfortunately, the biggest problem is that takes money, which there's no budget for. So realistically, you're never going to weed out this problem unless they start taking drastic action. Yes, everywhere has its problems, and I can agree with the minister on that one. But at the same time, one must take a look at how these measures are coming into play. The fact that there's already been 2 million fraudulent applications, if one could say that have been located and found. How many fraudulent applications have not been caught, and how many millions is that costing the state? Just with tightening its measures and looking at the application processes a lot better and being a bit more administratively astute in investigating, and also investigating in who gets hired into these positions. And that's where the problem also lies. If you've got corrupt people at corrupt levels and they're not being investigated until it's too late, why is there no preliminary checks and balances before the person takes up a position of that magnitude? And that's where a lot of the vetting process is not coming. And in that way, it becomes harder because they just become tighter knit, and it becomes harder to prosecute because there's no resources. They need to go ahead and start resourcing these things better and resourcing these departments for investigation purposes and not for administrative cost purposes.
Sure. All right. Alfred, we lost you there for a moment, and you were addressing what you were saying was an issue raised by the Deputy Minister around Sasa, I suppose, not dispersing the cards?
Yes, I was saying the minister, I think, is making some contradictions there, because I think beneficiaries are getting directions and instructions from Sasa to open the bank account. So if the minister says, if one found with cards are not Sasa cards, but those cards are the directives of the Sasa itself as the agency to say people must open the bank account, people must go and renew or transition to the gold cards. And now they are changing from the gold cards to the black cards, which there's a deadline of the 20th of March. So those people, if they are found with such a massive number of cards, or those gold cards or whatever cards that they will be using, the minister can therefore not say are not Sasa cards. They are representing Sasa because they are being actually produced to make sure that they are in line with the distribution of this grant. And then the second issue is that there were these fraudulent activities from the inception of this grant, whereby even some members were found to be actually getting or giving themselves this kind of grants while they were declining many millions, who are disparate, who are vulnerable to receive those grants, but were declined in most cases. But we found that the officials within the Sasa branches, including the post office, were amongst the people that were also benefiting from the very same grants. So currently, this issue of the so-called biometric is not something that we can guarantee and say, no, it will be smooth. Because those checks and balances that the Deputy Minister is referring to are the check and balances that are based in pushing out the beneficiaries, not to deal with the internal fraudulent activities that are orchestrated by the very same members or officials that are within SARS. So those biometrics are used as a tactic to decline and exclude many millions that are eligible for these grants, not to deal with the fraudulent activities. Because fraudulent activities is not committed or done by the very same vulnerable grant beneficiaries. So I think the minister is making some contradictions there.
All right, Alfred, I'm out of time, unfortunately, and I need to close it off. But DM, I think you can have the last bite here. And I've got about a minute for that. But Nkosinathi, you heard earlier a caller who says, much to some of the issues that have been raised there by Alfred Moyo. Nkosinathi, our caller, saying, well, we applied for, the grant for our own child and found that someone else was already benefiting. Where does that person go? What do you say to Nkosinathi, who's watching this interview and this conversation right now?
Let me first clear the air. There is no more a deadline. Secondly, that the access that beneficiaries have the choice to have the money transferred into an account of their choice. Sasa doesn't issue any Sasa cards. Your money is paid into a bank of your choice, and there are nearly 20 banks that people are using. The black cards is one bank of many other banks. And they obviously have not got their act together. I want to agree with the panelists that there is fraud in Sasa, but we have put measures in place to deal with that, and we're asking the police to do their work. catch them like that the police are doing, and I like to thank the police for their efforts to catch the criminals. Anyone who benefits from Sasa fraudulently, we will recover the money. We will recover the money even after they die from their estates. So this is a zero tolerance approach. The systems are in place. We are very confident that we will catch out the fraudsters. So those people in the Eastern Cape, yes, so they are Sasa cards. But do you have any evidence that we have paid any money into that accounts? No. So we need to just understand that the police are doing their work. And when the police catch the fraudsters, it means that we are on the way to success, that we're going to eliminate the stealing of state resources.
Okay. Well, I'm out of time. Gentlemen, we really have appreciated your input, though. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Deputy Minister there of Social Development, DM Hanif Hendricks. Speaking to us, Ian Ellis is a criminal law expert, and General Alfred Moyo, who is the coordinator of Pay the Grants. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. When we come back, residents in some villages and surrounding areas are calling on the Mpumalanga government to improve the road infrastructure in their communities. We've got that story on the other side of this. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's quickly take a look at some of the WhatsApps that have come in our previous conversation, that being around corruption within the South African Social Security Agency, or Sasa. Maybe just three. Let's take a look at those messages coming up on the screen. Anonymous says, Port Elizabeth needs to be investigated. Many people get Sasa grants even though they're not eligible to get them. The Strandale branch is also corrupt. Let's hope officials are looking at that WhatsApp and going to look into that particular branch. Sbongile Elizabeth says, hi, the Sasa scandal is very bad. I'm still waiting for payment for the social grant since last year. It's been 7 months. They told me someone is using my ID number and payment is going to that person. I don't know how they got all my payment, my personal details. Very concerning. Swangile, thanks for that. Helen says, Sasa needs to be audited. Check all government tired employees who draw old age pension. Is that retired? I think it is. Send ghost clients in to catch them out. So some creativity being asked for there by Helen to look into what's going on inside Sasa.